The former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I also saw the holy city, a new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will always be with them as their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or mourning, wailing or pain, for the old order has passed away." The one who sat on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give a gift from the spring of life-giving water. The victor will inherit these gifts, and I shall be his God, and he will be my son." The word of the Lord.
But I want you to think of the ways in which Barbara King Gillis is a mother, as a grandmother, a great-grandmother, as an aunt, as a neighbor, as a friend, as a parishioner here at St. Teresa's, in ways great and small, for the better part of a century, shared the gift of her life with you and with so many others in a way that no one else in the history of humanity ever will be able to or ever could. Because that reminds us that there's a lot of things that we all have in common. Each one of us whom God literally loves into life is a unique and individual creation, who is blessed by God with certain gifts, graces, talents, and characteristics that no one else in the history of humanity will have. And that's who we thank God for today. For Barbara, in her own inimitable way, in her own way of bringing to life the faith, hope, and love that is ours in Christ Jesus risen from the dead, was truly a gift from God. Certainly to you, who knew her and loved her the most and the best, but to our parish, to our greater community. Our hearts are sorrow as we say goodbye to her. But because we share the hope that she shared with you, that comes from the faith that she not only shared with you, but lived every day of her life, we believe that just as in the story of Jesus on the cross, death doesn't have the last word. Our hope, our faith, our trust is in the victory over Jesus in the resurrection. And when Jesus rose from the dead, he brought Barbara and all of us up with him. And he expanded the possibility of human life and mortality. No longer would we be bound by those things that make us less than the people God created us to be. Instead, the love of our God is so strong, is so vigorous, that he invites us to live not merely in this world for however passing years we might have, but to live with him forever, with all of our sisters and brothers in faith for eternity. So in our funeral mass this morning, we do indeed give thanks to God for the gift of the life and love of Barbara King Gillis. We ask him to bless her with the gift of eternal life, eternal rest, eternal peace, and a merciful judgment. We ask that same loving God who blessed Barbara with the gift of life, and you and so many others with the gift of Barbara, to bless you now in these difficult days, weeks, and months ahead with his gifts too of comfort and consolation. Over the course of her 92 plus years, Barbara, as I said at your house yesterday, saw and endured an awful lot, good times and bad. She, like so many of her generation, understood that life in this world wasn't easy. And yet, through it all, she persevered, endured, and ultimately overcame. We believe in faith that through God's grace and through the faith, hope, and love that Barbara shared with you and so many others, she has done that yet again in the fullest possible way. She, through God's grace and through her living out of God's love for 92 years, now overcomes death and enters into the great gift of eternal life. From her privileged place in God's heavenly home, may she help all of you through her prayers and her intercession as you miss and mourn her, and may she pray for all of us in these tumultuous times.
For the family and friends of Barbara, let the hope of new life in Jesus may be our consolation and strength. We praise the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
for our deceased relatives and friends, and for all who have helped us, that they may have the reward of their goodness. We pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For all of us assembled here to worship in faith, that we may be gathered together again in God's kingdom, we pray to the Lord.
Lord, hear our prayer.
Well, this is different. Very strange week. I'm sure Mom would have invoked Jesus, Mary, and Joseph many times this week for all that's happened. You know, and you always picture all your friends and family, and many of whom come, but you saw more. I don't usually use notes, but it's kind of a strange week. Father mentioned that we are filming this, and I'd like to say to anyone who watches it down the road, especially those 20 great grandchildren, I hope we do a good job today expressing what the Gillis and Bellevue are. I remember the first time I stood, it was for my grandfather. I wasn't asked to speak. I asked if I could speak, which was out of the ordinary, and I was allowed. And my mother was sitting right there. And let me just say that her body language did not at all fill me with self-confidence. I actually think Toomey was probably sitting in the same spot as that day too. And because it's been such a strange week, I'd like to very much thank the Gormley Funeral Home. You know them from around town. I see them, they're many of friends. And in a week like this, their professionalism with empathy was amazing, and it wasn't a surprise that they were so good. One of the things that makes us tougher is that Mom's the last of her generation in our family. We recently lost my last aunt. I really didn't know that Mom was competitive, that she was waiting for that to happen so she could then go. But she wins, that's good. And we live up there on Bellevue Hill in what we refer to as the Gillis compound. My grandfather's house is above me, and my cousins would always visit. I could be the laziest relative because everyone came there. I never had to go anywhere. Everyone came to us. I'm going to miss that. I think my airfare costs are going to go up in the future. But it was always a joy, and I never really saw it from the other person's perspective. But my godchild and my niece wrote a piece on Facebook that really expressed the other side, the side I didn't know. I won't read the whole thing. She describes getting on a plane in Georgia. Her parents at that time were allowed to strap her in. She flew in the plane by herself, looking for Care Bears in the clouds. And then she would land in Boston, and her grandparents would take her down the Cape and to all the historical sites. But as she describes it, she says how she couldn't disconnect the Gillises in Boston because of all the history. And she says, in the years since, whenever a new person entered my life, I would put them on a plane and say, come with me and meet these people. They talk funny, they eat funny, but they will love you with the fierceness of their Irishness, make you laugh until your stomach hurts, and give your soul rest in knowing that these people reside on the same planet as you. Jeez, can it be said any better? Can a home be described any better? Or a place, the Gillis compound, that for me as a child was enlightened when cousins would visit. My grandparents, who obviously set the standard for what the compound meant and was and is. I hope it doesn't go away, but it will lose some luster today and going forward without those elders. Because as much gray hair as I have, I can't be that elder like they were. I think it's important if we're gonna have this, we keep saying Grandma had 20 great-grandchildren. And that's with only 2/5 of the family breeding. So there's, and hopefully I can wait for grandchildren, just, you know. But I think it's important that when they watch this later, and they pass it on to the generations beyond us, that Claire, Karen, William, and Ryan, Caitlin, Grace, and Lily, Jackson, Caroline, Ella, Ethan, Everett, James, Issa, Lucas, and Benjamin, Ava, Kyla, Ella, and Michael know to pass this on and the gift they receive from their mothers and their grandparents every day. My sisters had some thoughts on Mom. Obviously, the oldest gave me the most, 16 different points. We'll see if we can't maybe narrow that down. The other ones were like 2. But she had some good thoughts, really good thoughts, actually. I think one of the funniest, though, was when my Aunt Alice, Mom's sister, came home, and Dad's sitting with Uncle Eddie, and she had bought this metal monstrosity to put on a wall. And Dad is just laughing at Uncle Eddie, just laughing at him, saying, oh, you poor sob, you paid for that? Only to find out Mom had bought the identical thing also. And I think also something that was very unique for my mother was when the Southern relatives would come up like John, my nephew, she looked out in the backyard and she's going to Barbara, like, what is he doing? Mom, he's hunting squirrels. She wasn't really used to that sort of thing. On the food side, we remember rhubarb pie from the rhubarb in the backyard. And also in that, we also remember that dinner was at 5. And there was always cookies and cupcakes. I was unaware that when I went off to college, many of my friends would come by my house. Oh, he's not here? And Mom would feed them. Which only says so much more. I think as she got older, she had the walkers group, which was really neat, the elderly of West Roxbury walking around and then having a martini. She was a back of the pew, 4 o'clock mass woman. And it came up a lot, and I had actually forgotten from living with her recently what a great whistler she was. My daughter said to me, I learned some classical tunes that I wouldn't have known because Grandma could whistle them so well. I'm sorry. I need a tissue. And I think, no, I'm good, Charlotte, I'm good. And I think she also brought up that Mom was a good listener. I'd have to say maybe I didn't receive that trait as much as others, but my sisters did, and that's what's important. I think that Cheryl wanted me to mention, and I don't know why, that she was a bit of a wild child. Under the age of 10, she caused Mom a lot of grief. She would climb into the cabinets, grab flour, throw it down, and ruined a radio doing that, which I guess is the equivalent nowadays of smashing a TV as a child. Mom resorted to some things to keep her in line, and I've heard stories of her being held in a harness, but I don't know that we could repeat that in public. Jean had a really good thought about Mom. I thought it was interesting when her son got engaged to his husband, Haven. Mom was very upset. I said, what's the matter? She goes, I don't know what to get him as a gift. Because she was immediately accepting of that. Never a hesitation. And Michelle had some thoughts about going downtown with the aunts and going to Woolworths and the old Farlene's, but I also thought she expressed how much she loved Prince Spaghetti Day on Wednesday. I find this strange because she's now allergic to gluten. So Mom was kind of screwing her up there for a long time, but this is a positive memory for her, so I don't know. And, you know what, I'm not going to do any notes anymore. You know, me and my mother had what many Irish boys in Boston would say, a very common relationship. The positive comments were few, which is fine. It made you who you are. I remember when I came home, I was about Lauren's age, and she said, Mary Dowd called. And she said she saw you on the bus, and you were so well behaved, and you gave your seat up to someone, and that was before you had to. And she said, you seem like a really nice young man. And I said, well, that's good, Mom. Well, she just doesn't know you. So then, just to give you the spectrum, years later, about 6 years ago, I said, Mom, I'm going to get my master's at Harvard. You know, I've heard that place isn't what it used to be. And this was okay. This was our relationship, and this is how it goes, because it just developed that. But it also had many good things, and it ended up giving me one of my greatest compliments. But I'd like to say one thing about Mama's story that has been kind of lost in time. When she graduated high school, she was looking for a job. You know, she probably looked in the Globe, went for a job interview. There was no Google how to interview. There was no classes at Wakefield High how to interview. So she goes downtown to a commodity broker, which is a really hard job, and there's no HR back then. You know, you interview with the guy who owns the company. And this gentleman was Swede Nelson. You've all heard of the Heisman Trophy. The Boston Gridiron Club's trophy is named the Swede Nelson Award. He was a very famous man back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Still today, the award is in his name. And Mom interviewed with him. And I've just always wondered if I could ever talk to Swede Nelson. What did he see? What did he see in that young girl who was not professionally trained to hire her? That's always been in the back of my head. But now back to Mom's greatest compliment to me, which is, of course, a backhanded compliment. When I graduated college, I was going to go to, I got a job real quick, but then I said, you know what, I want to go, basically I want to keep hitting people, I wanted to play football. And I wasn't that great, so I had to go to Europe to play football. My mother was not excited about this concept, and was on the phone with somebody who told me the other side of the conversation, where she said, he's going to do this. And the other person said, he's not going to do that. And my mother said to this person, then you don't know him. He does what he says. Which leads me to her greatest compliment. When I was sitting in a room with Dad and her, and we were talking about me and Shelley taking over the compound, I guess is the way to put it. And I simply said, this is the deal. We'll take care of you. We'll take care of you to the end. Period. And I know she wasn't that excited that her youngest, who was a boy, was going to take care of her. But she knew I would. And I don't know what greater compliment than that. But when you do that sort of thing, you sometimes don't remember the people that are going to be involved later. And I know that Mom is going to heaven right now. She's looking back. And she's pausing for a moment to say something to some people. And she's going to say it in her ancient tongue of Gaelic. And I'm glad we're here at St. Teresa's, where in Rome there's a statue to St. Teresa about selflessness. And selflessness is huge because it's not sacrifice. You give unto yourself without even thinking what you aren't going to do or what you're giving up. And I believe Mom stops, looks back at Shelley, Polly, Kirby, and Warren, and says, Shade Malay, Gilly Ma. Thank you, my gallant heroes. And gallant means selfless, because that's what you've been. You've never complained, because you didn't even think of it. It did make our few trips that we could do as a family that much more special, which is great. But you've You couldn't have been better. I know Mom knows that. So, as Mom goes off to heaven, let's take this a step up here. She starts flying up to heaven. She's cruising. All of a sudden, she gets a fast pass in her hand. So I hope she can zip right through the line. She's heading to the pearly gates. Dad's there, my aunts, my uncles. And St. Peter turns to shake Dad's hand. She's finally here. He turns, and there's Mom over by the book, looking at all the names for the future people coming up to see if they've been good or bad. And Dad goes, Bob, eternal happiness. Let's go. And a phrase I haven't heard in a long time. Fred, just a minute. And as she looks through that book, she's looking for all of you. And you now have the loyalest person you'll ever find in heaven for you. She'll be battling for all of you. And as she's looking down, she's smiling at everybody. She hits my name, and she probably, I knew he did that in 7th grade. And then she goes into eternal happiness. She's greeted by everybody. And I debate this. My mother's eternal happiness is supposed to be carefree and lack of worry. I believe, and I would bet on this in Vegas, that Mom's eternal happiness is to be allowed to worry as much as she wants. Because that's what makes her happy. Worrying about everybody was a natural act for her. So now this pandemic's here and it's really ruined my week. Social distancing during an Irish wake should be the distance between the other person and this cloth, not 6 feet. And this pandemic has grown from one place and crossed to others, and it's contagious and it's going everywhere. So maybe we need to sit back and think of something else that goes everywhere. I wish you could all see how beautiful this perfect rose is. And a rose, when you see it, brings you joy and happiness. Because the rest of the day you're a little happy, you carry that on to others, right? It grows, it keeps building. Well, this Irish rose reminds me of my mother. And an Irish rose, whether it lives for a month or 92 years, unfortunately, it must end. And it's unfortunate, but there's something that people don't realize. The essence is still there. It doesn't go away. It's in people. And it permeates. And it's contagious. It's all over here in West Roxbury. And it goes from West Roxbury to Taunton, where my niece lives. It goes from Middleborough to Plymouth, where my sister and my nephew lives. So it's here in Massachusetts. But it doesn't stop there. It's in Hoboken, New Jersey, all the way to Rochester, New York. It's in Chattanooga, Tennessee to San Francisco, California. It's all over Georgia, making people joyous and happy every day. And it can also hop continents. It's in Africa with my niece and my godchild. It's in Turkey with a cousin. It's in London right now with Alex. And it will not go quietly into that good night. It will live on, bringing that joy and happiness that is being robbed from us right now. And there are plenty of other grandmas out there with essences that are going to do the same thing. But Mom's doing it right now. That's essence will not die. So, in closing, I thank you all for coming. I want to leave you with what I said to Mom at the end. There's one phrase I've said to one person more than I think I anyone else. And I said it to her as I was leaving that night. Good night, Mom, I'll see you in the morning. And then I leaned over, I grabbed her hand. But it's okay if I don't. You can relax now. It's okay to go. And I'll see you when I see you. So good night, Mom. I'll see you when I see you. Thank you.
Trusting in God, we have prayed together this morning for Barbara, and now we come to the last farewell. There is sadness at heart, but we take comfort in the hope that one day we shall see Barbara again and enjoy her friendship and home. Although this congregation will disperse in sorrow, the mercy of God will gather us together again one day in the joy of his kingdom. Therefore now let us